I am delighted to introduce our guest speaker. I was trying to think about what to say about Gary Bennett, so I went online, I've got the bio, everything's listed out, and I guess I'll just start by saying he's my boss. Please be nice to him. Gary is quite amazing. His resume and bio is long. He is the Bishop McDermott Family Professor in Psychology and Neuroscience, Global Health and Medicine at Duke University. He also serves as Duke's Vice Provost of Undergraduate Education, where he leads and coordinates undergraduate academic, curricular, and co-curricular policy across organizational lines and serves as a primary spokesperson for Duke's undergraduate experience. I am pleased to share that the Duke TIP program actually reports into his organizational structure. Gary continues to direct the Duke Global Digital Health Science Center, and he is the immediate past president of the Society of Behavioral Medicine. His research program designs, tests, and disseminates digital obesity treatments. He is especially interested in integrating digital health treatments into the primary care setting, particularly those that serve medically vulnerable patients. Prior to coming to Duke in 2009, he was on the faculties of Harvard School of Public Health and Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. He holds a bachelor's degree from Morehouse College and a PhD in clinical health psychology at Duke University. He also completed a postdoc at Harvard School of Public Health. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Gary Bennett.
Good afternoon, everyone. Oh, that was much better. It's so nice to see all of you today. So parents, siblings, grandparents, friends, second cousins twice removed, I bid you welcome to Duke University and to this lovely facility. Now, Shauna mentioned many wonderful Duke memories have been created here at Cameron. At some basketball games, you'll see the opposing team come out of the locker room from right around there, and they walk into the stadium, and they look up in the ceiling with awe like they were in a planetarium, taking in the sights of this most imposing and beloved facility. Now, I always find it a little bit amusing when I'm asked to speak in Cameron, because the only athletic prowess I ever showed was the 100-yard dash back to my bedroom after dinner so I could get back on my computer. I always love that Duke tends to hold its ceremonies at or around Mother's Day, and this event has the distinction of being held between Mother's Day and Father's Day. And indeed, the smiles of your parents and loved ones are illuminating this room. And I think that's fitting, because on a day when we celebrate individual accomplishment, it's important to know that we didn't get here alone. So let me add my thanks to all of you for the people that these young folks will become. And they are quite successful. Y'all are really amazing. Today, you'll join an esteemed group of individuals who've made some very impressive achievements. TIP alums have made so many contributions to their families, to their fields, to our society at large. And we expect no less from each of you. Now, I really appreciated Ms. Young's kind introduction. However, I've always thought that biographies are a little bit like greatest hits albums. They touch all the high points, they mention the fancy titles, they include tons of superlatives. However, they miss the rough spots, the roads less traveled, and all the struggles that ultimately direct your steps. We don't talk about the transformative but uninteresting jobs. For me, that was working in the mall as a teenager, where I learned how to have conversations and how to sell men's jeans. I can fold some t-shirts beautifully. And they don't talk about the horrible jobs, like the 2 days I spent as a telemarketer. That's not recommended. And so when Ms. Young asked me to talk about something personal, I thought I should tell you a little bit about the rest of the story, or at least a part of it. So let me start by telling you all something that you probably don't know. Computers weren't always cool. That's true. Today, I find it absolutely amazing that people walk around with computers in their pockets, on their arms, and their eyeglasses, and their rings. Everybody seems to be learning how to code, or building Minecraft machines with their kids, and having their computers turn on the house lights, which is something I did 25 years ago. In movies back then, when I was growing up, the only people who used computers were nerds whose eyeglasses were so thick they could see the future. And today, when I tell people that I code, they say, "Really?" And they look at me with this kind of mix of respect and admiration. But when I was a kid, I'd say tell people that I could code, and they would say, "Really? Why?" When I was a kid, computers were for nerds, and apparently I was the king of the nerds. Before it was cool to build a Raspberry Pi kit, I would disassemble computers on my basement floor, to the horror of my parents who'd spent like all of their money on this thing that they didn't understand. Before Facebook, I would connect with my local community using these things they called bulletin board services. They were like early social networking sites where we would hang out each day after school and chat. And before Reddit, I talked about politics and culture with people all over the world on these things called Usenet newsgroups. And if you actually knew my handle, you could go online today and find some things that I wrote when I was 12 years old. That's scary. Be careful about what you post online. And then there was that time that I hacked into the school. But never mind, I'll just move on. Okay. So I hope I've made the case that I was a pretty nerdy guy. And today I wear that label like a badge of honor. Like really, total nerd. But back then, not so much. I too often allowed other people's judgments to shape my path. I didn't try to be cool. That was totally impossible. But I did try not to be uncool. In high school, I never joined the computer club or even really shared my interests in computers at school. In college, I didn't become a computer science major. I always kept my love of technology on the side. It was kind of my thing. And instead, I focused on developing other skills and talents. In time, I went on to graduate school here at Duke in clinical health psychology, and I developed this research program that was interested kind of in studying how stress gets under the skin and affects neuroendocrine functioning, mostly in people who are low income. I really enjoyed the work, and my colleagues thought it was innovative and edgy and poised to make a difference. It was good enough that by the time I was 27, I was a professor at Harvard. I was a successful scientist, by all measures, importantly mine, but I was completely unfulfilled. I could do the work just fine, but I didn't feel like I was making the kind of contribution that I wanted to make. I wasn't using all of my skills. So then one day I had an epiphany. I was getting this study started in a low-income housing community, and I was walking through the door, and this guy almost hit me on the head with a Wi-Fi antenna. He was installing it in that building. Now, I might have been seeing stars, but it was like a light went off in my head. It occurred to me that if people in this low-income community were going to have internet access soon, then maybe I might have an opportunity to build software that would help them to be healthier. Now, that may sound kind of obvious right now, but then it really wasn't. And so I decided over the next couple of months to completely shift my entire career away from studying why people have disease and towards treatment, away from test tubes, saliva, and blood samples, and towards computers and smartphones, and away from the security of a research area and a job that people thought was pretty cool, and towards something that people didn't know what to do with. I'd give talks, like scientific talks, and people would raise their hands and say, "Hey, don't you know poor people don't use computers?" Some of my colleagues were confused by the work, and others thought it was just a nerdy diversion from what I should be doing, away from a successful science career. But I sensed an opportunity, one that gave me personal fulfillment, and that used all of my skills. And we developed one of the country's first research programs using digital health solutions for medically vulnerable patients. Today, we've published a lot of papers, and we have a lot of grant money. We've started several companies based on these innovations, and our technologies are available to millions of Americans. But the thing that moves me most is seeing patients use our technologies and watching their lives change. I'm thrilled by what we've accomplished, but sometimes I wonder if we could have done more if I hadn't been so influenced by other people's opinions. And to be clear, my experience is not uncommon. In fact, my field of psychology has quite a lot to say about this. So we don't really have laws in psychology, but this one comes pretty close. When our behaviors and our decisions and our choices are driven by internal forces, we're more likely to be happy, less anxious, and productive. When we are internally motivated, we do things because we find them satisfying and fun and even rewarding. However, we live in a society in which we're constantly bombarded with external messages. Go make a lot of money. Get a fancy job. Go to the right college. Get the hottest car. Don't do that totally nerdy thing and be just like everyone else. Now, these kinds of messages, they can be important guideposts for us. But satisfying external forces won't make us happy. It won't give us personal fulfillment, satisfaction, and drive. We have to fuel our internal motivators to give us the best chance for happiness, fulfillment, and difference-making. Now, a great example of the benefits of being internally motivated comes from the life story of a woman named Nell. Do you mind if I tell you her story? Okay. Now, Nell was a talented woman with a passion for writing. She'd been writing for her whole life and often shared her talent with her friends. She got into a great college, but she just couldn't focus because all she wanted to do was write. So, people were just completely flummoxed by this. Her family did not know what to do with this. They told her to stay in college, graduate, get a good job, start a family, but Nell just couldn't hear it. So she left college, and she moved to a big city hundreds of miles away into a small apartment that she couldn't afford. And then for the next couple of years, she worked at a job that would never be a career, and she wrote with almost all of her remaining time. But Nell always made time for her friends, and she had some great ones. She spent a good deal of time with her best friends. This was a couple named the Browns, and together they shared their aspirations, their challenges, and their talents. Nell cared very deeply for the Browns, and they came to understand the magnitude of her writing abilities. Now, they came into a little bit of money, and they decided to give Nell a gift. And that year at Christmas, Nell came over to her house, and she walked into the Browns' apartment, and she saw a little envelope sitting on the Christmas tree, and it had her name on it. And inside was a note that said, "You have 1 year off from your job to write whatever you wish." And write she did, intensely. And over the next year, Nell Harper Lee wrote the book To Kill a Mockingbird, and instantly became known as one of America's foremost authors. And the book changed not only her life, but the lives of many in our country. Harper Lee's life shows us the benefits of fueling our internal drive. Psychological science says that the fuel consists of 3 things. First, we have to feed our need to develop skills and expertise in an area that matters to us. Harper wrote constantly and spent months editing Mockingbird. Similarly, you all should try to find an area that speaks to your own interests and master it. I was so excited to hear about the talents that you all have. Lean into those. Don't follow my example and sideline your talent. Embrace it. Second, we have to control the course of our own lives. Harper took this to the extreme. She bucked the conventions of her time and her community, and you all should listen to others' perspectives and weight the input from your family, and then make the decisions that are consistent with the kind of person that you want to be. Don't follow the herd, follow your own path. And finally, we must stay connected, deeply, authentically, and transparently with others in our life. Harper was always writing, and she always remained connected to her friends. Follow her lead. You didn't get here alone, and you can't succeed on your own. So stay connected with friends, and especially with your family. No matter what, listen and cherish the time that you have with them. Now, as good as all this sounds, I'm not suggesting that you grow up, quit school, move to a small island, and write the great American novel. And I'm not suggesting that your parents pay for it. And I'm certainly not suggesting that you follow your dreams at the expense of college, food, and shelter. I am saying that if you spend all of your time doing things that are purely externally motivated, things that don't really speak to your internal drives, your passions, your talents, your purpose, then don't be surprised if you feel unfulfilled. You have to fuel your internal drive, develop expertise, shape your own path, and stay connected. This will keep you engaged, increase your fulfillment and your happiness, and you might just make a difference. And also know this. Over the next 5 years, you all will be bombarded with external motivators. You'll be told that you must do this to get into college, you can't do that, or colleges won't pay attention, you have to go to a certain college to go to graduate school. People will tell you all of the things that guarantee that you'll be admitted or that you won't be admitted to college. Now, let me be really clear about this. In most cases, when people speak with that kind of resoluteness, they're either wrong or they're uninformed. We at Duke are not looking for students who adopt cookie-cutter textbook approaches for getting into college. You'll often hear us say that we're looking for interesting people who are doing interesting things. That does not necessarily mean following the well-trodden path of being an Olympic athlete while saving the whales on the weekends and curing cancer in the summers. If you're a really excellent musician and you decide to spend all of your time leaning into your instrument, that's wonderful. If you decide that you do 2 or 3 things really well and you want to combine them in an interesting way, that's pretty great as well. We're looking for excellence in whatever way you manifest it. So don't waste your talents, your skills, and your passions following somebody else's example. Be truly excellent in whatever you choose, and we'll hope to see you again in just a few years. Go Duke. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Gary, for those inspiring words. We're grateful for your time and commitment to our program, and we know that your words will make a difference to our students starting today.